Ever wondered what happens when Nigeria's most powerful tech queen kneels in the dust to propose to a silent beggar? What secret could he be hiding that would make her ruthless board of directors regret ever crossing her? Imagine a love story where a lost billionaire CEO, a vengeful corporate coup, and a set of triplets collide in a penthouse filled with modern Nigerian luxury. This is a tale of shocking identity, ruthless betrayal, and a breathtaking comeback. If you love stories where love and strategy rewrite destiny, you're in the right place. Don't miss a single chapter of this drama. Like this video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to see how this fierce billionaire queen and her mysterious husband reclaim everything that was stolen from them. The Lagos sun was a merciless, brilliant gold, beating down on the chaotic symphony of Yaba Market below. Up here, on the 40th floor balcony of the IJE Tower's penthouse, the air was cool, filtered, and silent except for the hum of climate control. Ifeoma Obinna stood with her palms pressed against the warm, frosted glass balustrade, a queen surveying a kingdom that felt increasingly like a gilded cage. Her home was a masterpiece of modern Nigerian design, a sanctuary that now felt sterile. The living room behind her featured sleek, ochre-painted walls offset by a striking floor-to-ceiling uli mural, its intricate white patterns telling ancient stories of strength and journey. Low-slung, deep indigo sofas were piled with cushions made from vibrant osso oak. A coffee table, carved from a single slab of burnished cedar, held nothing but a sculptural bronze ochre pot and her forgotten tablet, its screen dark. But her eyes weren't on the curated beauty inside. They were fixed on a spot directly across the teeming street, beneath the sprawling ancient mango tree that stubbornly claimed its piece of earth between a cyber cafe and a pharmacy. There, as he had been for 7 months, 4 days, and she checked her diamond-studded wristwatch, approximately 6 hours, was the beggar. He was not like the others. He didn't wail or clutch at passers-by or brandish signs of misery. He simply sat on a folded, clean burlap sack, his back against the gnarled trunk, a simple wooden bowl before him. He wore faded but meticulously mended trousers and a plain shirt. His beard was neat, his eyes, even from this distance, seemed to hold a reservoir of calm. He was a still point in the frantic spin of Lagos. Madam, your tea. Tund, her driver and de facto bodyguard, appeared at her elbow, holding a tray with a cup of fragrant lemongrass tea. His gaze followed hers to the mango tree. A faint, disapproving line creased his forehead. He is still there. He is, Ifeoma said, accepting the cup. Did you take him the package? Yes, madam. The moi and the plantain. Thank you. He asked if your headache was better. Ifeoma's hand stilled. Shed had a raging migraine the day before, canceling 3 meetings. Shed mentioned it to no one. How did he know? Tund shrugged, uneasy. He says he watches the light on your balcony. When you are well, you stand straight, you look out. When you are unwell, the lights are dim and you sit in the chair. He pointed to the woven akapa's chair in the corner. He is observant. A shiver, not of fear but of profound recognition, went through her. He sees me. The thought was as unsettling as it was thrilling. In the boardroom at IJE Tech, she was Madame CEO, a force to be reckoned with, a figurehead to be flattered or feared. Her proposals were dissected, her profits worshipped, her personal life ignored until it could be used as a lever. But her headaches, her solitary stands on the balcony, the weight of her loneliness, these were invisible. The intercom from her home office buzzed, shattering the moment. It was her assistant, Neka. Madam, the board memorandum has come in. They have formally rejected the Digital Village project. Chief Adekunle's comments are that. Ifeoma closed her eyes. The Digital Village project was her heart, a plan to bring sustainable tech hubs to rural communities, starting with her own ancestral village. The board saw it as a philanthropic drain, not the revolutionary investment it was. Adekunle's note would be a masterpiece of veiled condescension. Forward it to me, she said, her voice flat. She ended the call and looked down again. A well-dressed man had paused by the beggar's bowl, dropping a few naira notes. Instead of the effusive gratitude most would perform, the beggar merely nodded, a gesture of dignified receipt, not subservience. The man walked on, looking vaguely offended by the lack of drama. Something in Ifeoma snapped. It was a clean, clear break like a diamond scoring glass. The hypocrisy of it all, the board members with their hollow praises and hidden knives, the society people who would donate at a glittering gala but scorn a quiet man on the street, her own life of isolated luxury. Decision, pure and impulsive, flooded her. She set the teacup down with a sharp click. Madam? Tund asked. Open the private elevator, she instructed, already walking towards the entrance. Do not follow me. Madam, you cannot go down there alone in my what? In my designer clothes? She paused, a bitter smile on her lips. If they get dirty, Tund, I will buy new ones. She didn't take her purse or her phone. She just stepped out of her perfumed, silent world, into the brass elevator that descended like a falling star towards the roaring, vibrant, messy earth. The heat and noise hit her like a physical wall as she exited the building's secure lobby. The smells of suya spice, diesel, ripe fruit, and open gutters formed a potent Lagos perfume. She ignored the stunned looks of her building's concierge and security, and strode with purpose across the street, navigating the stalled traffic and hawkers with an innate Lagosian grace. He looked up as her shadow fell over him. There was no surprise in his colonut eyes. Only a deep, patient waiting. Without a word, Ifeoma Obinna, CEO of IJE Tech, worth an estimated 50 billion naira, knelt on the warm, dusty earth beside his burlap sack. The red yaba dust settled on the hem of her ivory Quaim dress. She looked directly into his calm, knowing face. "Marry me," she said, her voice clear, cutting through the market's din. For the first time, his expression shifted. Not to shock, but to a profound, searching intensity. He studied her face, the defiant set of her jaw, the vulnerability she could no longer hide in her eyes. "What?" he asked. His voice was a low, resonant baritone, utterly composed. It was the voice of a man who had never begged for anything in his life. Ifeoma took a breath. "Because you see me. And I think for a long time I have been invisible. And I am tired of being surrounded by people who see only my balance sheet." A long silence hung between them, filled with the shouts of pure water and the blare of bus horns. A slow, genuine smile touched his lips, transforming his weathered face. It was a smile of understanding, of shared solitude, of a secret he was not yet ready to tell. "Okay," he said. It was not the answer of a beggar. It was the agreement of an equal. "Want to see the board's reaction when Ifeoma walks into her next meeting with her mysterious new husband by her side? What is the devastating secret behind his calm eyes? Like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. The corporate war is just beginning." The silence in the penthouse was a physical entity, thick and stunned, broken only by the soft, distant chime of the grandfather clock shaped like the Benin bronze head of an oba. Uche, the family lawyer and Ifeoma's oldest friend, stared, his glass of palm wine frozen halfway to his lips. Neka, her assistant, had dropped a volo vent, the flaky pastry scattering like shrapnel on the hand-knotted, geometric-patterned rug. Ifeoma stood in the center of her sunken living room, a space usually alive with the quiet confidence of her success. Now it felt like a theater stage after a shocking plot twist. Beside her, Emeka was a study in serene contrast. He had bathed, revealing skin the rich hue of polished mahogany, and wore a simple, impeccably clean Senator Agbada of cream linen that Tund had hastily and bewilderedly procured. He stood with a posture that was neither proud nor submissive, but rooted like the Irako tree. "Ife, Gido?" Uche finally managed, his lawyerly composure shattered. "What is this? Is this a joke? A social experiment?" His eyes darted to Emeka, taking in the quiet dignity, the direct gaze. "Oh, who is this?" "This is Emeka," Ifeoma said, her hand finding his. His fingers were calloused, strong, and they closed around hers with a certainty that steadied her. "My fiancé. The man from under the mango tree?" Neka whispered, her voice a mix of horror and fascination. "The man who sees me," Ifeoma corrected, her tone leaving no room for debate. "We're getting married. Here. This Saturday." The next 72 hours were a whirlwind of silent preparations and loud gossip. Ifeoma's small, trusted staff moved in a daze. Kemi, her cook, prepared small chops with a fierce, protective energy, muttering about evil eyes. Tund became Emeka's shadow, a role that evolved from wary supervision to puzzled respect as he watched the man move through the lavish apartment with an unnerving familiarity, as if had always lived amongst art installations and automated systems. Ifeoma's chosen few, Uche, Neka, her university roommate Lola, tried to intervene. "Ife, think of the company," Lola pleaded over video call, her face pixelated with concern. "The board will eat this alive. They'll say you've lost your mind." "What mind?" Ifeoma replied, arranging a cascade of golden yellow ododo flowers in a glazed ceramic vase for my Koradu. "The one that was constantly fighting them? Maybe I've found a better one." She designed her own dress, a sleek, column-like gown from the genius Maki O, not white, but the deep blue of a Lagos midnight, embroidered with subtle, silvery thread patterns inspired by Nsibidi symbols for journey and truth. It was austere, powerful, and utterly breathtaking. Emeka, for his part, asked for only one thing: a single sprig of mango leaf. The ceremony was at sunset. The penthouse's floor-to-ceiling windows framed a sky blazing with oranges and purples. The officiant, a progressive female pastor, kept glancing at Emeka, her prayers laced with a palpable curiosity. The guests, 7 in total, sat on low, backless stools upholstered in osso oak. When it was time for vows, Ifeoma turned to Emeka, her heart a drum in her chest. "You offered me a reflection of myself I had lost," she said, her voice clear in the hushed room. "In your stillness I found my courage. I vow to honor the man you are, not the world you came from." Emeka looked at her, and for the first time she saw a flicker of immense, unspoken emotion in his eyes, a tidal wave held back by sheer will. He took the sprig of mango leaf from his pocket and placed it in her palm, closing her fingers over it. "You knelt in the dust for me," he said, his resonant voice filling the space. "I will stand in any fire for you. I vow to protect the woman you are and the kingdom you have built." He did not say love. The word hung in the air, unspoken but palpable, more powerful in its absence. It was Uche who reluctantly raised a toast. To unexpected blessings," he said, his eyes on the enigmatic groom. The photos, leaked by a staff member to GIST Nigeria, detonated like a cultural bomb. "Billionaire tech queen wed street beggar." The headline screamed. The comments were a vicious cocktail of mockery, moralizing, and racist vitriol. Memes of Ifeoma kneeling in the dirt flooded social media. Chief Adekunle's first public comment was a masterpiece of poison. "We at IGE Tech celebrate love in all its forms. Our focus remains on stable, corporate governance." The board meeting the following Tuesday was held in the IGE Tech headquarters main chamber, a cold room of blue glass, steel, and a massive carved ebony table. Ifeoma walked in, Emeka by her side. He wore the same cream agbada, a stark, silent rebuke to the room full of Armani and bespoke suits. The silence was glacial. "This is highly unprofessional, Ifeoma," Chief Adekunle began, not bothering with preliminaries. He didn't look at Emeka, treating him as one would an inconvenient piece of furniture. "Your personal adventures are now a subject of public ridicule. It reflects on the brand. It destabilizes investor confidence. My husband," Ifeoma emphasized the word, "is not an adventure. He is my personal matter. This board's concern is the company's performance, which, as the numbers show, is excellent. Performance is perception." Another board member, Mrs. Chikwendu, chimed in, her lips pursed. "The perception is that leadership is unstable, prone to erratic, emotional decisions. The Digital Village project was one thing. This is a circus." Emeka, who had been observing the room with the detached focus of a strategist, finally moved. He reached for the carafe of water at the center of the table. His movement was smooth, assured. He poured a glass, not for himself but for Ifeoma, setting it before her with a quiet finality. It was a simple act, but in that context, it was a declaration of intimacy and support that violated the sterile, hostile atmosphere of the boardroom. It said, "I belong here at her side." Adekunle's eye twitched. The power play had been subtly, utterly redirected. "The vote on the Digital Village project stands," Adekunle snapped, regaining control. "Suspended indefinitely. And a motion has been tabled for a review of the CEO's position, considering the new reputational liabilities. We will reconvene next month." It was a declaration of war. Back in the sanctuary of their penthouse, the triplets, Chidi, Chima, and Kizarem, were a whirlwind of joyful noise in the nursery, their walls painted with soothing forest murals by a contemporary Nigerian artist. Ifeoma leaned against the door frame, watching Emeka lift Chima into the air, the baby's giggles like bells. The fear from the boardroom receded, replaced by a fierce, protective love. Emeka caught her looking. He settled the baby back into a crib woven from cane. "The lion," he said quietly, walking over to her, "does not concern himself with the opinions of jackals. He only notes their position in the pack before he strikes. They're going to try and take my company, Emeka," she whispered, the vulnerability she showed no one else laid bare. He cupped her face, his thumb brushing her cheek. His eyes held that same deep, knowing light shed seen under the mango tree, but now there was a flicker of something else, the steel of a long dormant blade being unsheathed. "Let them try," he murmured, his voice a low promise that vibrated in her bones. "I lost my own company to men like them. I have been studying their playbook from the gutter. And I know every single move they will make before they make it." What company did Emeka lose? How did a billionaire CEO end up as a beggar under a mango tree? What devastating move is he already planning in the shadows? Like, subscribe and hit the notification bell. The past is about to collide with the present in an explosive showdown. The suspension letter arrived on a Tuesday morning, embossed with the cold, official seal of IJE Tech's board. It was couriered in a thick cream envelope that felt like a slap. Temporary suspension pending a full governance review, it read. Chief Atakunnel's digital signature was a smug, final flourish. Ifeoma stood in the center of her living room, the letter dangling from her fingers. The morning sun streamed through the latticework of the jolly-inspired room divider, casting intricate shadows that now seemed like prison bars. The triplets were in the adjoining nursery, their cheerful babbling a painful counterpoint to the silence closing in around her. She had built an empire from a single laptop at her mother's kitchen table, weathering recessions and rivals, only to be brought low by a cabal of men in tailored suits and their weaponized gossip. Emeka found her there, statue still. He took the letter from her hand, his eyes scanning the legal jargon without reaction. He then placed it carefully on the cedar coffee table, next to the bronze okra pod. They've won, Ifeoma whispered, the words ash in her mouth. No, Emeka said, his voice a calm, deep anchor. They have only announced the battle. They assume the enemy they see is the only one that exists. He walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, looking down at the mango tree, now just a green speck. It is time, Anyam, he said. Time for the beggar to retire. He turned and walked towards their bedroom, not with the quiet shuffle of the past months, but with a purposeful, commanding stride that made the air shift. Confused, Ifeoma followed. She watched, leaning against the doorframe of their spacious, minimalist bedroom, walls clad in textured raffia panels, a platform bed made of reclaimed aqua wood, as he went not to his side of the wardrobe, where his simple cottons hung, but to a high, locked cabinet she had never seen him open. From his pocket, he produced a small antique key she didn't know he possessed. The click of the lock was loud in the quiet room. Inside the cabinet were not clothes, but items wrapped in soft black cloth. He pulled out a bundle and unrolled it on the bed. Nestled in the fabric was a wristwatch. Not just any watch. A Patek Philippe Grandmaster chime, its platinum case whispering of obscene, quiet wealth. He fastened it around his wrist, the weight of it settling with an air of profound rightness. Next came a signet ring, heavy gold, bearing a crest, a lion's head superimposed on a circuit board. He slid it onto his finger. Then, from the back of the cabinet, he withdrew a garment bag. Unzipping it, he revealed an agbada so exquisitely crafted it stole the breath from Ifeoma's lungs. The fabric was a deep, rich navy osso oak, shot through with threads of silver that formed intricate, almost imperceptible geometric patterns. It was the kind of garment that spoke not of money, but of generational power and impeccable, unassailable taste. As he shed the simple cream linen, his transformation was not just of attire, but of essence. The man who shrugged into the heavy, magnificent agbada was not her gentle, observant husband. His shoulders straightened, his chin lifted, and his eyes, when they met hers in the reflection of the full-length mirror framed in beaten brass, held a storm of authority, intelligence, and a long-suppressed fury. Who are you? Ifeoma breathed, her heart hammering against her ribs. He turned to face her fully, a king restored to his throne room. My name is Emeka Okoro. 5 years ago I was CEO of Kaino Dynamics. I built it from a garage in ABA into a continental leader in renewable energy microgrids. My board, my friends, my brothers from secondary school, orchestrated a hostile takeover. They used my trust, forged documents, and manipulated stock, leaving me not just bankrupt but publicly disgraced. They took my company, my name, and my will to fight. Then he stepped closer, taking her cold hands in his warm, now ringed ones. I went to the streets not in defeat but to see the truth, to remember what value is when you strip away the logos and the stock tickers. I planned my return for years, gathering my strength, my evidence. But I was waiting for a sign, for a reason beyond mere revenge. His thumb stroked her knuckle. Then, a warrior queen with loneliness in her eyes and fire in her soul knelt in the dirt and asked me to share her life. You gave me a kingdom worth fighting for, Ifeoma. Now let me fight for yours. The revelation crashed over her, the immense burden head carried, the terrifying patience, the cosmic scale of their meeting. It wasn't luck. It was fate, armed with a spreadsheet and a hunger for justice. What do we do? She asked, her voice stronger now, a general readying for war. We attend the emergency general meeting tomorrow. Not as petitioner and beggar, but as CEO and a surprise guest. A sharp, calculated smile touched his lips. Atakunnel and his pack stole from a lion while he was sleeping. They didn't realize he was only pretending. The Eco Hotel Convention Center was a temple to modern Nigerian ambition. Ifeoma walked in not in the defensive corporate armor of a suit, but in a fierce, crimson dress by Lisa Falawiyo, its bold print a declaration of war. Behind her, Emeka was a silhouette of devastating power. His navy agbada seemed to absorb the light, the silver threads glinting like unsheathed blades. The whispers began the moment they entered the hall, a wave of confusion rolling through the assembled shareholders and press. Who is that with her? At the high table on the stage, Chief Adekunle's smirk faltered. He didn't recognize the man, but he recognized the aura. It was one he had spent his life trying to emulate and possess. Adekunle began his speech, a masterclass in manipulation. A pattern of erratic judgment. Personal life impacting corporate integrity. The necessity of stable, experienced leadership. Ifeoma waited, her posture regal. She had ceded the first move as Emeka had instructed. Just as Adekunle moved to call the vote for her permanent removal, Emeka rose from his seat beside her. He did not ask for the microphone, he took it. His movement was so assured, so inherently authoritative, that the technician simply let him. Chief Adekunle, members of the board, shareholders, Emeka's voice, amplified, was a resonant, calm force that silenced the room. My name is Emeka Okoro. Some of you in this room know that name. You know what I built, and you know how it was taken from me. A visible shockwave went through the older segment of the business community present. Murmurs of, the Lion of Kainode. He disappeared. Rippled through the crowd. On stage, Adekunle went pale. He did know the name. Kainode's takeover had been a notorious, brutal case study in corporate betrayal. Emeka nodded to the back. On the massive screens flanking the stage, a presentation flickered to life. It was not flashy. It was forensic. What you see here are bank records, backdated contracts, and encrypted email chains from 5 years ago, detailing the conspiracy to defraud me and seize Kainode Dynamics. The evidence was irrefutable, cold, and damning. Faces of 3 men, now board members of other top firms, appeared. The same men using the same playbook. He paused, letting the room absorb the scale of the old crime. Then he changed the slide. Now you see the current plans. Drafted by Chief Adekunle's inner circle. Codenamed Project Eclipse. Its aim, to systematically devalue IJE Tech, force a fire sale of its assets and seize control, using the CEO's personal scandal as a smokescreen. Ifeoma watched, her blood singing with a fierce, vindictive joy as Adekunle's face crumpled. The screens showed everything. Plans to sabotage the digital village rollout, fake social media bots to amplify the Beggar scandal, even a draft press release announcing her voluntary resignation for health reasons. My wife, Emeka said, the word echoing with protective ferocity, saw value where the world saw refuse. She built IJE Tech with her genius and her grit. You, he said, his gaze finally locking onto Adekunle's, see only what you can steal. You are not builders. You are locusts. The room erupted. Shareholders shot to their feet, shouting in anger and betrayal. The press cameras went into a frenzy, capturing Adekunle's utter dissolution. Emeka's final words were quiet, yet they cut through the chaos. The motion before you is not about Ifeoma Okoro's fitness to lead. It is about whether IJE Tech will be led by a visionary or plundered by pirates. I move for the immediate reinstatement of the CEO and the expulsion of Chief Adekunle and the named conspirators from the board, effective this second. The vote was not a contest. It was a landslide. That evening, the penthouse was filled with a different kind of silence, a peaceful, triumphant one. The triplets were asleep. Ifeoma and Emeka stood on their balcony, the city lights glittering like a conquered diamond field below. She leaned into him, his strong arm around her shoulders, the fine wool of his agbada soft against her cheek. You fought for me, she whispered into the night. He kissed her forehead. We fought for us, he corrected. They gave me a company. He looked down at her, his eyes finally holding the love he had long held back. That you, under that mango tree, gave me a reason to become a king again. But the war isn't over. Emeka's evidence has shaken the entire Nigerian corporate world. The ousted board members are desperate and dangerous. What ruthless counterattack are they planning in the shadows? And now that the lion is fully awake, what does he plan to reclaim next? Like, subscribe and hit the notification bell. The real game is just beginning.